Click here to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get instant notification of new videos as they're released. So when I first started doing all of the work that I've done on Betfair, people were incredibly skeptical. And that's perfectly natural because, especially back when I started in the year 2000, nobody had really understood what exchanges were all about. And I sort of expected a lot of skepticism then. But I took a lot of pleasure in just going ahead and doing it anyway. I think the biggest skepticism I faced was from people that I'd known previously, because when I left my well-paid, interesting job to do this, people were sort of saying, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I just sort of said, "Well, I've got this. There's this thing called Betfair, and I'm quite interested in that." And everybody was like going, "Oh God, what is he doing? You know, he's gone crazy." So I expected a lot of skepticism back then. But I just ploughed on anyway, and it never became an issue. But also, you know, as time progressed, I built up this fantastic track record, and I thought, well, you know, surely that will allow people to understand that everything that I've said has actually happened, and you know, I can keep pushing on to bigger and bigger heights, and seeing what I can do, and changing the world. Although that is a little bit more of a task. However, one thing I didn't expect was that 15 years after I started, you would still get a lot of skepticism. And I think it's just human nature to be skeptical and to throw doubt on things. But the funny thing is, you know, I'm looking at it from a perspective of not only what I've achieved, but what other people have achieved as well. I've got to meet some fascinating people, seen some brilliant things. And you look at all of that in front of you and you're thinking, well, how can people still not completely understand what's going on here? And why is betting exchanges and trading on them not a much bigger arena? Why is it still a niche of a niche of a niche? And I can't really explain that. It's obviously a psychological thing. I think people have this desire to not be proved wrong, or to hold deeply held beliefs, and they're very difficult to unlodge. People just don't want to unlodge that. And sometimes I think you get this from people who have been unable to spend the time, effort, or to try and make it work. So what they've actually done is casually glanced at it and just said, "No, that doesn't work, I'm off," when they've actually, you know, just skirted over the surface of it. I have never been to Singapore, and yet I have no doubt that it exists. And yet I can prove that there are more people who haven't been to Singapore than there are that have. So if I was to try and argue a case for the fact that Singapore doesn't exist, I would probably say, well, look, there's so few people that have been to Singapore, and there's millions, billions in fact, that haven't been, therefore Singapore doesn't exist. And you sort of tend to find the same when you're doing something on the edge of what people consider normal. People just can't believe it. But I've spent a lot of time pondering about the psychology of things, and I've attended loads of lectures, read loads of books, and I think I've got a really good handle on the psychology of everything. And in fact, even when you're trading, psychology probably makes up about a third of your ability to be able to do it successfully. But over this 15-year period, what it's taught me is to have a more open mind. I'm considerably less skeptical than I used to be. And having gone through many curves along the way, there's been things that I was initially going to dismiss that I've then subsequently had to revise. So in fact, having a bit of humility about you will help you as well. So being able to admit that you're wrong will not only help you as a person, but it will help you trading as well, because the market will do whatever it likes, whether you agree with it or not. So having the humility to accept a loss or a bad decision is quite a key part of trading. But also I've learnt that I'm fairly open-minded and I'm willing to change my mind and opinion about things. But you tend to find that in life in general, people just don't. And very often they will try and position things to reinforce their views rather than to offer a balanced approach. And that just seems to be a basic, fundamental psychological human flaw. And my mission, I think, over the next few years is to try and understand if there's a way of helping people overcome those biases, because you see it when people trade. People get pushed around by the market and by their own mind. And I think that there probably is a way of being able to help people overcome that and make them just much better people anyway. But, you know, my quest continues. But I think that the stage of the career that I'm in, I'm quite fascinated by the psychology of things. And it's quite fascinating to see when people do struggle with that side of things. And I think that probably what I may be looking to do over the next few years is to try and understand that a bit better and see if I can come up with a framework that will help people overcome it. But anyway, the quest continues. If you're interested in learning more about BetAngel, its tools and the opportunities they present, then why not visit betangel.com today and download a free trial.